What if I told you that this humble, overlooked device is actually one of the most critical security tools you own? I want you to do something for me. Right now. Just look down at your desk.
If you're driving, maybe don't do that.
Right? Yeah, if you're driving, just visualize it. But for everyone else, look down. What's the landscape there?
You got the essentials?
The coffee mug for sure. Probably a little stained. You've got that mess of cables we all swear we're going to fix one day.
Oh, absolutely. The cable nest.
And maybe a notepad. But I want you to really focus on the one object your hands are on or hovering over for probably, 8-10 hours a day? The keyboard.
It is, and I would argue this with anyone, the single most ubiquitous piece of tech in our lives.
Ubiquitous, yeah.
And also the most ignored.
Ignored is the perfect word because, let's be honest, how do we actually think about this thing?
We don't.
We don't. It's just a slab of plastic. It's a mechanism for getting words on a screen, a dumb device.
Right. We spill our lunch on it.
We pound on the backspace key when we're frustrated. We treat it like a glorified typewriter that just happens to be plugged into a supercomputer. It's a commodity.
That is the common perception.
Yeah.
100%. It's an input device. It sends some character codes to the operating system, and that's the end of the story.
Right. But that is where we are so wrong. And this is the thing that completely blew my mind when I was reading through the material for today's deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at this plastic rectangle all wrong. What if I told you that this humble, overlooked device is actually one of the most critical security tools you own?
I'd say you've been reading our notes.
That it's not just an input device, but a gatekeeper.
That is the pivot point. That is the core of this entire conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the source material we have today, and we're pulling heavily from the archives and white papers of a company called KSI.
KSI, right.
Who have been, and this is key, in this specific game for over 40 years.
40 years. That's a long time in tech.
It's an eternity. And for them, the keyboard isn't just a way to type, it's a fortress.
A fortress. I have to admit, when I first read that in the prep notes, I laughed a little.
I'm sure you did.
I looked at my own keyboard. It's got a slightly faded E key, and I thought, you are not a fortress. You are a dust collector. But you're saying the experts, the people who've been at this for 4 decades, they see it completely differently.
They absolutely do. And we have to give them credit for the history here. KSI didn't just pop up yesterday with a new Kickstarter. They've been iterating on this specific interface since the early days of personal computing.
Wow.
So while everyone else was trying to figure out how to make keyboards cheaper or, how to make them glow in the dark for gamers.
Which is cool, but...
It's cool, but they were asking a fundamentally different question. They were asking, how can this device protect the very data it's being used to type?
So that's our mission for this deep dive then. We are going to unpack that question. The evolution of the keyboard from a simple peripheral into, a critical endpoint security tool. We're going to look at how shifting security to the physical endpoint, the actual hardware under your fingertips, can solve some of the nightmares that keep IT directors up at night.
Oh yeah, the big ones. Password fatigue.
Password fatigue is real. Data breaches, obviously.
And the biggest one of all.
Human error.
The human factor.
Yeah.
Always. And the real challenge, the thing we have to keep in mind, is doing all of that, locking down the data, securing the network, without making the user, you and me, want to throw the computer out the window.
Which is usually what happens every time I get an email about a new security protocol. I just groan.
With friction.
Yeah. But we'll get to that. I want to start with the philosophy, the why, because I'm still a little stuck on this. Why? The keyboard, we have firewalls, we have antivirus software, we have sophisticated cloud security.
It all comes down to understanding the gap, the blind spot in most modern security setups. Think about how we traditionally defend a network. We build a castle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have these massive digital walls around our data. That's your firewall. It's there to stop external attacks.
The invisible walls.
Exactly. And we have guards on those walls, which is your antivirus, monitoring the traffic, looking for threats.
Makes sense.
But here is the fundamental problem with that model. Those walls, those guards, they're all designed to stop someone breaking in from the outside.
Right.
What happens when the threat just walks right through the front door? Or maybe more accurately, What happens when the authorized user, the person with the key, opens the door and then just walks away, leaving it wide open?
You're talking about the physical endpoint, the actual computer sitting on the desk.
I am. You can have the most expensive encryption in the world, the most advanced firewall money can buy, but if I can walk up to your unlocked computer while you're off getting a coffee,
It's all useless.
it's completely irrelevant. I am already inside the castle. I don't need to scale the walls. I'm sitting on the throne, reading the king's mail.
That is a genuinely terrifying thought. We spend millions, billions guarding the perimeter, but we leave the terminal itself wide open.
And that is precisely why the keyboard, according to our sources, is what they call the perfect vector for security.
The perfect vector. I like the sound of that. But okay, challenge me on this. Why the keyboard specifically? Why not the mouse or the monitor? Why is the keyboard the perfect one?
2 words, omnipresence and function.
Okay.
Let's start with omnipresence. Think about the environments where security matters the most. I mean, really, truly matters.
A hospital.
Hospital nurse's station, absolutely. A bank teller's window.
A government office. A 911 dispatch center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what is the one constant piece of hardware in every single one of those high-stakes scenarios?
The keyboard. You can't do the job without it.
It's the universal interface. It is the absolute choke point for data entry. Every command, every patient record, every financial transfer, it all flows through the user's fingertips into that device.
So the logic is, why wait for the threat to get into the network?
The keyboard is the front door for all data, so it makes sense to put the lock on the front door.
It's the difference between, say, having a security camera inside your house that's already watching a burglar steal your TV,
Right.
versus having a lock on the front door that only opens for you so the burglar can't even get inside in the first place.
That is a perfect analogy, and it leads us directly into the biggest conflict that every IT director faces every single day.
The user experience paradox.
The UX paradox.
Oh, I love this paradox. I hate this paradox. The equation is always more security equals more annoyance.
It's the friction coefficient. Every new layer of security adds friction to the user's day.
Right. My company tells me they're increasing security, and I just groan.
Yeah.
I know it means I'm going to have to carry some dongle that I'm definitely going to lose.
Or a smart card that you leave at home.
Yes. Or I'll have to memorize a 20-character password that changes every single week and can't be anything like my last 12 passwords. It feels like the security is actively fighting against me, trying to do my job.
And that resistance is a security threat in itself. Because when security is too hard, people find ways around it.
The sticky note under the keyboard.
The classic. And that is where the KSI approach, this whole security keyboard concept, tries to completely flip the script.
Ooh.
If you integrate the security tools directly into the device you are already touching all day long,
You minimize the friction.
you practically eliminate it.
Right.
Because I don't have to reach for something else. I don't have to break my workflow.
Exactly. Your hands are already on the keyboard.
If the fingerprint reader is right there next to the spacebar, or the badge reader is built into the frame of the keyboard itself, you don't have to stop what you're doing. You don't have to dig a smart card reader out of your laptop bag and plug it in.
It's just there.
It's integrated into the tool you're already using.
It just becomes muscle memory. Tap, type, work.
Ideally, yeah. It becomes invisible. The best security is the security you don't even notice.
Okay, but we have to talk about the economics of this, because I know you're going to ask, and I'm sure someone listening is thinking it, isn't this kind of high-tech hardware really expensive?
I was waiting for that. It's a fair question.
If I'm a CFO of a hospital and you come to me and say, I need to buy 5,000 of these smart keyboards, I'm just seeing dollar signs flash before my eyes. Why wouldn't I just send out a memo telling everyone to pick better passwords? I mean, that's free.
Is it free, though?
Well,
Seriously, think about the hidden costs. What's the cost of a single password reset? The call to the help desk, the lost productivity while the employee is locked out. Multiply that by thousands of employees over a year.
that adds up,
It adds up fast. And that's before we even talk about the cost of a breach.
which is millions or tens of millions.
Exactly. Reputational damage, fines, lawsuits.
Yeah.
Now, compare that astronomical number to the cost of upgrading a peripheral.
It's a different scale.
It's a completely different scale. Replacing a keyboard is a plug-and-play solution. You don't have to rip out your server racks. You don't have to re-architect your entire network infrastructure. You just unplug the old dumb plastic and plug in the smart fortress.
It scales.
It scales perfectly. Whether you are a small dental practice with 3 computers or a multinational bank with 10,000 workstations, the solution is the same. It protects the endpoint, regardless of the size of the network behind it.
Okay, I can see the business case. It's an investment, not just an expense. It's cheaper than a lawsuit, for sure.
Much cheaper.
But I want to pivot a little to the why now
Yeah.
aspect of this. We've established that keyboards are everywhere. We've established they can be upgraded. But why is this so urgent right now? And I think this brings us to the second big section of our deep dive, the human factor.
The weakest link.
The squishy part of the system, us.
It's unfortunate, but it's just a fact. In the overwhelming majority of cybersecurity incidents, the point of failure isn't a flaw in the code, it's the human. It's not even always about trust or maliciousness, it's about cognitive load. We are asking employees, our colleagues, to do too much.
How do you mean?
We tell them, remember this incredibly complex password, but also you have to change it every 90 days. And oh, by the way, don't write it down anywhere. Also, lock your screen every single time you stand up, even for a second. And you need to be constantly vigilant for sophisticated phishing emails. It is exhausting.
And when people are exhausted, they cut corners. It's human nature. So the goal of an intelligent keyboard is what? Automation.
Automation is the key. It is about taking the burden of security off of the user's shoulders or out of their memory and putting that responsibility squarely onto the hardware.
I love the sound of that. Let the machine do the worrying.
Think of it like a modern car. You don't have to manually crank the engine anymore. You don't even have to remember to turn the headlights off. They do it themselves. You don't have to remember to lock the doors if you have a proximity key.
Right, you just walk away and it beeps.
The car handles the routine security and operational tasks so you can focus on driving. The keyboard needs to do the same thing for the computer so the user can focus on working.
Okay, so let's pop the hood. We've talked about the philosophy, the why. We've talked about the human problem. Now I want to get into the gadgets, the toys, the actual
The
features.
tech stack.
Yeah. What is actually inside these KSI keyboards that makes them smart?
The goal isn't to be intimidating, it's to be intuitive. But under that familiar exterior, there is a lot going on. Let's start with the most fundamental question of security. Authentication.
Who are you?
Exactly. Prove to me who you claim to be.
And traditionally, for decades, I answered that question by typing a password. I'm saying, I am the guy who knows the secret word.
Which is what we call one factor of authentication. Something you know.
Mm-hmm.
But real, robust security, what we call multifactor authentication, or MFA, requires more than that.
Right, you need more layers.
You need at least one other factor, either something you have or something you are.
Okay, let's break those down. Let's start with something you have. The sources talk a lot about RFID and NFC integration.
Right. Radio frequency identification and near-field communication. These are the technologies in the badges we all carry. If you work in a corporate office or a hospital, you probably have a badge on a lanyard around your neck.
The badge life. Yes, I beat myself into the building every morning. It's second nature.
That badge contains a tiny chip and an antenna. It transmits a unique ID when it gets close to a reader. Now, usually that badge gets you through the lobby turnstile, and then what happens to it?
It just hangs there. It's a piece of useless plastic for the rest of the day while I'm at my desk typing in passwords.
Precisely. The KSI keyboards integrate the badge reader directly into the keyboard deck itself.
So it's not a separate little box you have to plug in.
No, it's seamless. So
Yeah.
the workflow completely changes. You sit down at your desk, you don't start typing a long username, you just tap your existing employee badge against the keyboard.
And that's it.
That is your something you have. Now, usually, for good security, you'd pair that with a short PIN. That's your something you know. So it's tap and type. But think about the security implication of that simple action.
Okay.
If a hacker in a basement in, say, another country manages to steal your password,
Yep.
they can't log in
Why not?
because they don't have my physical badge. They're not in the room. They can't tap the keyboard. You got it. You have just bridged the digital and the physical worlds. You have made physical presence at the desk a mandatory requirement for access. That one simple step eliminates an entire class of remote credential stuffing attacks
Right.
for that endpoint.
That is huge. It basically says, if you aren't physically standing here, you aren't getting in.
It's a very powerful concept.
Okay, so that's something you have. What about something you are? The biometrics.
This is where we get into fingerprint biometrics.
Now, I'm used to this on my phone. Everybody is. I touch the sensor and my phone unlocks. Is it basically the same tech?
It's very similar technology, but it's engineered for an enterprise-grade environment. So the keyboard has a high-resolution fingerprint sensor built right into the deck.
Again, not an external dongle.
No external mouse attachment,
Yeah.
no little USB dongle hanging off the side that can get broken or stolen. It is part of the core device.
And the benefit here is, what? Is it just about speed?
Speed is a big part of it, for sure. But the real security benefit is something called non-repudiation.
Non-repudiation. Okay, that's a fancy security term. Break that down for me.
It means you cannot deny it was you. You cannot repudiate the action.
Okay.
If a password is used to authorize something, you can always claim, oh, someone must have guessed my password, or my account was hacked.
Plausible deniability.
Right. If your badge is used, you could say, I must have lost my badge. Someone else must have found it and used it. But your fingerprint...
You can't really say, oh, somebody borrowed my finger for a few minutes.
I mean, unless we're in a very dark spy movie, no. Your fingerprint is uniquely and physically tied to you.
So for high-stakes transactions.
Exactly. Approving a $1 million wire transfer, accessing the medical file of a VIP patient, prescribing a controlled substance, that fingerprint provides a definitive, unbreakable audit trail. We know for a fact it was Dr. Jones who accessed this file because we scanned her unique finger at 10:42 a.m.
And you mentioned speed. It's fast.
It's milliseconds. Compare that to carefully typing a complex 14-character password with uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters.
That I probably have written down somewhere anyway.
And that you probably mistype twice before you get it right. With this, the friction is just gone. You touch, you're in, you work.
Okay, I am sold on the finger and the badge. That makes perfect sense. But there is another scenario that I think is even more common and honestly maybe even more dangerous because it's so mundane we don't even think about it.
What's that?
The walk away.
Yes. The bane of every physical security audit ever conducted.
Picture this. I'm a finance manager. I'm working on something super sensitive, let's say. The payroll for the entire company. All the salaries, the bonuses, it's all right there on my screen.
High-stakes information.
The highest. And
Yeah.
suddenly, I hear a commotion down the hallway. Or, let's be more realistic, my friend yells that there are donuts in the break room.
The donut threat vector.
Yeah,
It's very real and very powerful.
it is. It's undefeated. So what do? Instinctively, I jump up from my desk. I make a run for the glazed twist. And what have I left behind me?
An unlocked, fully authenticated, privileged session.
Wide open. For anyone walking by the janitor, a visitor from another company, a disgruntled colleague, to just sit down. And for all intents and purposes, they are me. They can see the payroll, they can transfer the money, they can steal the data.
And this happens constantly. And the traditional IT solution for this is the screensaver timeout.
The dreaded 15 minutes of inactivity rule.
Right. If you don't touch the mouse or keyboard for 15 minutes, the screen locks. But 15 minutes in a security breach scenario is an eternity. A massive amount of damage can be done in just 60 seconds.
So the onus is on me. I need to remember to hit Windows L or Command Lock every single time I stand up.
Every time.
But I don't, because I'm thinking about donuts. I'm human.
And this is where we get to section 5 of our outline and maybe one of the most futuristic sounding features, presence detection.
Okay, so how does the keyboard fix my donut-induced negligence?
Some of the KSI keyboards feature built-in sensors that can detect human presence. Functionally, the keyboard knows when a user is sitting there, working. And crucially, it knows the instant that user is gone.
So the keyboard is aware.
In a functional sense, yes. It is monitoring for the user's presence at that workstation.
So I run for the donut, I leave the desk. What happens next?
The moment the keyboard detects your absence, it immediately, and we're talking seconds, not minutes, sends a lock command directly to the operating system. The screen locks.
It locks itself before I'm even halfway to the break room.
That's the idea. It secures the workstation automatically. You didn't have to touch a key. You didn't have to remember a keyboard shortcut. You just walked away, and the keyboard took care of the security for you.
That is the very definition of a zero-trust environment, isn't it?
It is a perfect application of zero-trust principles at the physical endpoint. It protects you from your own distraction.
And it protects the organization from that opportunistic snooper or the person who just wants to play a prank and send a funny email from your account. It closes that window of opportunity from 15 minutes down to practically zero.
Exactly.
I really want to ground this for the listeners now because we've talked about a lot of tech, RFID, biometrics, presence detection. It all sounds great in a lab or a white paper.
The theory is sound.
The theory is sound, but where does this actually play out? Where does this stop being cool tech and start being critical infrastructure? And the source material highlights 3 specific sectors that are really illustrative.
Healthcare, finance, and the general corporate enterprise.
Let's start with healthcare. The source material calls it the life or death scenario.
Think about a doctor or a nurse in an emergency room or an ICU. They are in constant motion, room to room, patient to patient, bedside terminal to nursing station.
And they need access to patient records now. Not in 30 seconds.
Right. They need to check for drug interactions, patient history, allergies, lab results. It has to be secure. It's legally mandated.
So the traditional IT guy, following the rules, says, okay, doctor, you must type your 14-character complex password every time you enter a room and touch a computer.
And the doctor says, I have a patient crashing. I don't have time for your password. So what happens in the real world?
They leave the computers logged in all the time, or they tape the password to the side of the monitor.
And security completely fails because it got in the way of providing care.
So walk me through the KSI keyboard scenario in that same hospital.
Okay. Dr. Stevens walks into room 302. She approaches the medical cart, the computer on wheels. She doesn't have to type anything. She just taps her hospital ID badge on the keyboard. Maybe the system requires a second factor, so she places a finger on the built-in sensor for a split second.
Tap and touch.
And click, she is in. The patient's chart is open. The whole process took maybe 2 seconds.
Incredibly fast.
She checks the vitals. She orders a medication from the pharmacy. Then suddenly she hears code blue, room 305, over the intercom. She has to run.
She doesn't think about logging off. Her mind is on the patient.
She doesn't have to. She spins around and sprints out the door. The presence detection on the keyboard sees her leave. Before she's even out of the room, the workstation locks instantly. The data of the patient in room 302 is secure. She's already down the hall, running into room 305, tapping her badge on that keyboard to log in there.
It actually flows with her work. It doesn't fight her, it supports her.
That is the gold standard of applied technology.
Okay, that's a powerful example. Let's move from saving lives to saving money. Finance, the money scenario.
Banks, trading floors, wealth management firms. This is all about integrity and trust.
The trust is everything. If you don't trust your bank, you don't have a bank.
Exactly. Now, picture a trading floor. It's loud, it's chaotic, it's incredibly fast-paced. Millions of dollars are moving in seconds based on a few keystrokes. The risk here isn't just someone stealing data, it's someone executing a trade they shouldn't be.
Fraud, or what the sources call insider threats.
Insider threats are a huge problem. Let's say a trader, Bob, gets up from his desk to go to lunch. A colleague, maybe someone who's having a bad month and wants to sabotage Bob, or maybe someone who just wants to make a risky trade on a verified account that isn't their own, slides into Bob's empty chair.
And his screen is open. I'll just make one quick trade on Bob's account. No one will know.
In the old world, if Bob forgot to lock his computer, that trade happens. It goes through. And when the regulators come knocking, Bob is the one in serious trouble. Bob, it was your account that made this illegal trade.
But I was at lunch. Prove it. It's his word against the log files.
Now, with the security keyboard in place, 2 things happen. 1, the moment Bob stood up from his chair, the machine locked thanks to presence detection. So the malicious colleague can't slide in and do anything.
Blocked at the first step.
But let's take it a step further. Let's talk about the biometrics again. For very high-value transactions, like a trade over a certain dollar amount, the system can be configured to require a fresh fingerprint scan at the moment of the trade.
Like a final signature on a check.
A digital signature using your physical self.
Yeah.
So even if the computer was somehow left unlocked, to hit that final execute button, you need Bob's actual finger on the sensor.
So that gives you the non-repudiation we talked about?
Exactly. The audit trail is now ironclad. We know for a fact Bob made that trade at 11:52 a.m. because Bob's unique fingerprint was there to authorize it. It protects the bank from fraud, but it also protects Bob from being framed.
It creates a chain of custody for digital actions that's tied to a physical person.
Perfectly said.
Okay, and finally, the third area, the general corporate enterprise, the IP scenario.
This is the world of trade secrets, the secret formula for the soda, the schematics for the next generation microchip, the source code for the algorithm that runs a multi-billion-dollar search engine.
The crown jewels of a company.
Companies live and die by their intellectual property. And corporate espionage is very real. But often, the biggest threat isn't a rival company hacking in, it's internal.
An employee who is leaving to go to a competitor and wants to take some files with them on a USB drive.
Or even just an intern who is curious and starts snooping around in folders where they have no business being.
So how does the keyboard help in a big, sprawling office environment?
It's all about granular access control and compartmentalization. You can use these strong authentication tools like FIDO keys or specific smart cards to ensure that only a handful of authorized engineers can even access the terminals in the R&D lab where that IP is stored.
So it's not just a computer anymore. It's a secure terminal that only responds to certain credentials.
And again, in the modern open plan office, that walkaway lock is absolutely vital. Open offices are a nightmare for security. You get up to walk to the printer and 20 people can see your screen with confidential HR data or unannounced financials on it.
That's called visual hacking, right?
It is, and auto-locking solves that problem instantly and automatically.
It really is a comprehensive, multi-layered defense. You have the badge, which is something you have the finger, which is something you are, and you have the presence detection for continuous monitoring, all baked into one slab of plastic.
It completely transforms the endpoint from being the weakest link in the security chain into being the very first line of defense.
I have to say, this whole deep dive has completely changed my perspective.
It's not just a typewriter anymore, is it?
It's really not. We started this episode, and I think I called it dumb plastic. But after all this, I think we've proven it's anything but. It's actually kind of a genius piece of plastic.
It has evolved. And that is the synthesis of this whole discussion. The humble keyboard has evolved from a simple mechanical tool for input into a sophisticated, intelligent security hub.
And we should probably mention the legacy of KSI again here.
Right.
Because as you said, they didn't just stumble onto this last year.
No, not at all. They've been working on this for 40 years. Let's think about that for a second. 40 years ago, we were using DOS on green screen monitors. We were using 5¼ inch floppy disks. The internet as we know it didn't even exist for most people.
And yet they were already looking at the keyboard.
They were already asking, how can this device do more? How can it be a platform? They viewed the keyboard as a platform for innovation at a time when the rest of the industry was treating it as a cheap, disposable commodity.
They saw the potential to solve these incredibly complex human problems: password fatigue, infection control in hospitals, massive security breaches right there at the user's fingertips.
This is a real lesson in design, I think.
Yeah.
Don't overlook the simple, ubiquitous tools. Sometimes the answer to a high-tech problem isn't more complicated software, it's just smarter hardware.
And that security doesn't have to be harder for the user. It doesn't have to mean more complexity and more friction.
It just has to be smarter. And that, I think, is the main takeaway for everyone listening today.
Right. Thanks for diving deep with us today. This has been a fascinating look at the unsung hero of the desktop.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Stay secure, everyone.